Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Mina Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use my new Smokey light ray overlays in Photoshop. They are simple to use, but I'm going to show you a couple different ways to use them on multiple different pictures that I have open in Photoshop. They're going to work best on dark backgrounds. You can use them on lighter backgrounds, but the lighter the background, the less that the overlays are going to show. You can copy and paste, but I'm going to show you another way to import the overlay into your image so you can more easily switch between overlays. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select all and copy and paste into my image. I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. That's what you have to do for these overlays. Okay, go ahead and resize. You obviously want the light coming from the same way that it is falling onto your subject on the backdrop. So now there's multiple different ways you could make it not as noticeable on her. You could lower the opacity, but sometimes when you do that, it kind of desaturates the overlay as well, or at least makes it look like it's desaturated, and it doesn't look as good. So it is better to add an adjustment layer to adjust the brightness of the overlay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my adjustments and my brightness and contrast, and I'm going to create a clipping mask, and that just makes it so I'm only working on my overlay and not on my background. And then I'm going to drag down the brightness, drag the contrast a little bit. Okay, and as you can see, that made it so obviously the effect is still on her, but it's not overpowering to where it's covering too much of her face. And you could play around with different adjustment layers to get it how you want it. If there's any, like there's a piece of green light in here for this one, if you wanted to get rid of that, you would simply just come to your overlay. I use my healing tool for this kind of stuff, and I would just grab down here on the, wrong one, grab down here on the overlay and just run it over that real quick, and then it gets rid of it completely. And I would be done with this one. Moving on to the next one. So there's already some smoke in this one from the cigar. I don't have any open in Photoshop. I'd like to not open so many layers in Photoshop. It can slow it down a little bit. So I'm going to go up to File and Place Embedded. And then you would navigate to the folder where your overlays are stored. Let's see, I'm going to try, I think I'm going to do this one. I kind of want a lot of realistic smoke. So now the light's coming from the right side of the image, so I'm going to right click in here and flip horizontal. Resize, change that blending mode once it places to screen, and as you can see, that's a lot of smoke. So I'm going to go up to my brightness and contrast. I'm going to clip it to my overlay, and I'm going to bring down that brightness. I'm going to bring up my contrast, and then I'm going to add a curves layer as well. And then I'm just going to bring down the opacity just a little bit, so that it looks more realistic. And you can always, I don't like the different colors up here. For a different image it might be fine, but if you want it to just be complete black or white smoke, you can simply just create. I'm going to go ahead and merge these layers real quick that I already did to edit it. You'll have to change it back to screen blending mode. I'm going to go ahead and add a black and white adjustment layer, and I'm going to merge that with my overlay and then change it back to screen, and then that will get rid of all that color up there that I didn't really want. You could adjust it a little bit more so it gets completely rid of that. If the smoke seems too sharp or you want to add a little bit of blur to it, you can do that as well. See how this smoke is a little bit more blurred? You just go up to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur to make it match a little bit better to the backdrop. Say like you wanted to brush a little bit more off of his face, you would just create a layer mask on your overlay, grab a black soft brush at about 20% opacity, and just little by little brush it. I still want it to be a little bit visible on his face, but I wanted to brush a little bit off of there. You can see how that just took a little bit off. Now I would be done with this one. I think that looks pretty cool. And you can still see the light rays up here too. Okay, so for this one, go up to File and Place Embedded again. Let's see. I'll try, there's some in here with a floor. I'm gonna do this one, even though it's horizontal, I can drag it out. I might pick a different one depending. Let's see. Bring the brightness and contrast. Brightness down on this one and kind of see where it leaves us. Okay, so now I'm not too fond of this one. I'm going to, so if you just right click and replace contents, you can pick between, or you can pick a different layer. I think I'm going to do this one. Now I need to flip that because, there we go, it's coming from the wrong direction there. Okay, I think this one's going to be a lot better. So I'm going to create a brightness and contrast layer on that one and drag down my brightness, up my contrast just a little bit. Just want to do a before and after. You obviously don't want the floor to be on her feet, so I'm going to create a layer mask on that, and I'm just going to brush that off a little bit around her feet. And before and after for that one is there. I would probably brush it a little bit off of her too. It looks a lot better on plain backdrops than it does backdrops with texture, because the texture kind of still overpowers the ray and the smoke, which it's good that I included this one in the tutorial because you can kind of see that now. Okay, so this one, so I'm going to do a little bit different than this one. I kind of want it behind her, and then I'm going to brush it on. So I'm going to go ahead and do my quick selection tool and select subject. And wait for that to work. Okay, and make sure it selects the subject pretty good, which it did a pretty good job. And then duplicate the layer, create a layer mask, and then press Control or Command I on your keyboard to invert that layer. And then I'm going to go up to File and Place Embedded and pick my overlay, which let's try this one. I think it has a little bit of a floor on it, maybe not. Okay, and then I'm going to change blending mode to screen. You can also play around with these too. Like this is a lighter backdrop, so I could maybe do it on, I'm going to try soft light. And then I'm going to hold down Alt, or you can hold down Alt and click between these layers, or you can right click and create clipping mask. And that's going to put it behind her. I'm going to add some blur to that smoke. So Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Oh, there's a siren going off in my neighborhood in case you hear it. I'll do about 4. And then I'm going to come down to my layer mask here, and I'm going to use a brush on 20% opacity, but I'm going to use a white brush this time because I'm brushing on. And I'm just going to brush some of the smoke back on to her, because I didn't want much on her face. A second, I want to go back here. There we go. And then, as you can see, the layer down here, if you zoom in, there might be some lines around here. You can just use your black brush and kind of brush off that overlay, specifically on the parts that it was really noticeable to have your original floor there. And then you can lower the opacity a little bit, and then you can go ahead and play around with all the different blending modes to see what looks the best. I kind of like it on soft light. I like it on screen though too, but I would probably brush it off just a little bit up there to blend it more so it wasn't as noticeable. It's kind of more of a moodier one. But that's also another way to do it. You can create that mask and brush it on in areas other than it being behind them. Keep going back to soft light. I think this one just looks a little better than the other ones. But that is how to use them. Different ways you can use them. They are better on solid backdrops. They show better. They show better on darker backdrops as well. If you do have a lighter backdrop, you'll just have to play around with the blending modes like I just did. But these can add a cool effect to your images. If you have any questions, you can send me a message or you can ask in the Facebook group. If you have not yet joined, I will link it in the description.